Hey, thanks for stopping by Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, and always check out the subscription bar down there. Make sure you are subscribed. There's also a little icon now right on the screen that you can subscribe from. Check out your bell icon so you can get notifications. Like, comment, and share. So, what am I here to talk about today? I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Owatonna People's Press and journalistic integrity. Why do I say it that way? Well, as I have been doing as of late, I've been going over to Owatonna, and I went over there on Monday night, August 30th of 2021, and I attended their school board meeting. The United Patriots for Accountability parents group over there, citizens group over there, has been um, showing up in mass for the last several months to talk about the inculcation and the use of critical race theory and well, the school district insists it's not teaching critical race theory or critical theory in any way, shape, or form. They're just about equity, which is not what people try to make it out to be. But all that aside, um, Owatonna People's Press shows up on a regular basis. Steele County Times, I think that I've got it, also shows up on a regular basis. And what and I want to juxtapose here just briefly that the Steele County Times reporter that was there on Monday night actually took time after the meeting to approach me and have a conversation with me to uh, find out why I was there and why I was involved and what motivated me. We had an excellent conversation. So I don't know what her article is going to look like about the meeting, but she promised that she would be fair and that she would report in an unbiased way. And this is why this is incredibly important. The Owatonna's People's Press is not like that. They wrote a demonstrably fallacious article. It's not presented as an editorial. It's not presented as a commentary or an opinion piece. It is presented as an article. And when you present an article in journalism, it's given a appearance of fact-based reporting. And this is not what happened. For one, neither one of the two OPP, Owatonna People's Press, OPP, um, journalists journalists that were there at the meeting on Monday night approached me afterwards. They didn't approach. They took some pictures from during the meeting, but they did not approach. And they patently and demonstrably falsified and lied about things that were done and said during the meeting. And so we're going to take a little bit of a look at the the articles. So bear with me
So
here. This is the first page or the first screenshot because you have to pay to get this rag. Um, and she said in the final minutes leading up to the Owatonna school board meeting, it was uncertain how the board would proceed as members of public demanded school staff and press be removed from the room. Now, I actually said that. I said remove your cabinet members and remove the press if you have to start removing people. And the reason that I said that was the room was over capacity. The room was absolutely 128%, and not in actual numbers, but no denying it. The room was over capacity according to fire code. This absolutely is true. But what was happening was they were they reserved a table for the press. They reserved a table for cabinet members, and these cabinet members were afforded and the press were afforded chairs and a table, which took up even more room. And they were telling people that if they were going to speak during the public forum, they'd be allowed to come back into the room to speak, but until they were speaking, they had to step out of the room. Now, I want you to keep in mind that the cabinet members uh, could have done the same thing. They absolutely could have done the same thing. They did not need to be in the room. Now, I'm not talking about board members. There's a difference between a board member and a cabinet member. Absolutely, do board members have a responsibility to be in school board members have a responsibility to be in the room during the meeting. You have to have a quorum. No arguments there, okay? Um, but cabinet members are paid staff who do not need to be in that room any more than the citizenry needs to be in that room. This this is absolutely crucial for people to understand. These board meetings happen in public. Open meeting law requires, demands, states that these meetings have to happen in public. And there's only a very limited amount of things that can cause a meeting to go private, chiefly investigations into accusations against staff, especially as it relates to minors, and disciplinary hearings for staff. And that staff member could actually, if they choose, ask for their disciplinary hearing to be conducted in public, in front of the public. So I'm not arguing that the board needed to be moved out of the room. I'm arguing that if you're really running up tight on space and you want to start removing people from the room, remove non-essential people. And non-essential people in this situation are the people who are taking up space. And in one of these situations, and Michelle Krell, she didn't need to be in there until the actual regular meeting started taking place. She did not need to be there during the public forum at all. She took up a spot. There were other cabinet members during the public forum that could have stepped out and allowed even more people into the room. So this is a disingenuous or disingenuine uh, statement. Did I say it? Yes. Was it hyperbolic? Yes. And everybody understood the point I was trying to make. So let's proceed. With a capacity limit of 70 people in the boardroom at the Owatonna District Office Building, the limit has been reached. As people lined the walls and sat on the floor to observe the public comment portion of the meeting, as board chair Mark Sebring asked the last people who arrived in the meeting stand in the hall to be in compliance with the room's capacity limits, uproar from a portion of those in attendance commenced. Yeah, there was some frustration. This is not your meeting, Mr. Sebring. This is our meeting, said Todd Pearson of Spring Lake Park, Minnesota, a suburb of North Minneapolis. It is a long drive. I have to tell you that. It is just an absolutely taxing and long drive from Spring Lake Park. Who has been mobilizing people from around southern Minnesota to attend Owatonna school board meetings and present opposition to critical race theory and equity being taught in the classroom, and demanded that staff and members of the press be forced to leave the meeting. First of all, I didn't say forced. I never said forced. I just demanded that other accommodations be made. And so, and something else I want to stress here. This portion where asked that the last people who arrived at the meeting stand in the hall to be in compliance with the room's capacity limit. This took place over a protracted period of minutes. Something that you need to understand in relation to all of this is that for the last 6 weeks at least, and I have the emails to prove this, for the last 6 weeks, the the Owatonna or the Patriots United for Accountability Citizens Group in Owatonna has been sending me email after email after email to the entire Owatonna Public Schools School Board, and also to the entire, uh, or not to the entire, but to the superintendent and maybe some others in the school district, asking, not demanding, but asking for a change of venue. You must understand this. They have been asking for a change of venue. And every response from Mark Sebring and from Jeff Elstead has been, we'll monitor the situation, but we're not going to do that. This is a month and a half, 2-month long culmination of requests by citizens, by concerned parents, by concerned taxpayers in the school district, demanding accountability and demanding transparency, and they're not getting it. They are not getting the transparency. The school board will not entertain a change of venue. They could make this happen, but they choose not to. And we have to ask ourselves why. Why are they refusing to do that? So here we are, 6 weeks into this situation, and not one of the school board members, not the superintendent or anybody else, has acknowledged this publicly, that these requests have been made. And they're trying to paint the people who are making the requests out to look like radicals. I'm going to go on here. A handful of people voluntarily left the room to listen from the open doorway, but the tension continued to palpitate throughout the meeting, including an hour-long public comment period during the public comment section. Pearson and others frequently dished out demands when to let people speak. Patently untrue, and I have the video to prove this. 2 times I and others spoke out. One is when Angie Langley, one of the concerned parents, one of the concerned taxpayers of the school district, was speaking, and Mark Sebring stopped her and told her she wasn't allowed to say what she was saying. He tried to silence her. He tried to censor her speech. And it was a direct factual statement of something that occurred, and that was the fact that the superintendent of the school district, Jeff Elstead, accused all of his staff of either conscious or unconscious racism, and he said the entire community of Owatonna is racist. He said those things, and the public has a right to address that. They have a right to address that during the public forum section. It wasn't an insult. It wasn't a personal attack. It was a statement of fact. And Sebring tried to stop her. And when he tried to stop her, I stepped in and said, you cannot stop her from speaking her mind. You cannot dictate what she can and cannot say as long as it pertains to the business of the school board. And I said, you need to give her time back for the 3 minutes. That's what happened. And then the other situation in what this reporter did not accurately report was that 3 young ladies from the school district very courageously showed up to speak in favor of critical theory, and they all signed up together, and Mr. Sebring tried to tell them that they had to share their 3 minutes, and I said very politely and very respectfully, and you will see the video of this, very politely and very respectfully said, Mr. Sebring, these young ladies had the courage to come and speak. Please allow them each 3 minutes. Now, would you know that from this article? Would you know that? No. What you see is this completely biased, completely fallacious, completely libelous, slanderous painting of everyone who was involved as being disruptive. So here we go. So during the public comment section, Pearson and others frequently dished out demands when to let people speak and when to give people more time, stating the board's rights as a governing body hosting an opening meeting. So now she's going to go on and quote an attorney, Mark Anfinson. Misconceptions on the rules and regulations of government meetings are common, according to Mark Anfinson, a Twin Cities-based attorney who represents the Minnesota Newspaper Association and who is regarded as an expert on Minnesota open meeting law. So this is what is going to be referred to within the laws of logic as a appeal to authority. It's a logical fallacy. He's regarded as an expert on Minnesota open meeting law. So Mr. Anfinson doesn't have any of the facts. He only has what this reporter has reported to him. And And so now he's commenting on that, and she is using his commentary to try and persuade you that what happened at the meeting on Monday was at at best disruptive, maybe bordering on illegal. All right. Over the last several months, Anfinson said he has been fielding a surge in phone calls regarding open meeting laws, what is protected and what is not. So there comes a point where the tail starts wagging the dog during the public comment period, especially when there's a really controversial issue circulating, said Anfinson. This is preventing the board from getting on with their meeting. No, that is not what happened here. Okay. The board was not prevented from getting on with their meeting. The board has a public comment section built into their meeting time. Now, granted, for the last several months, that public comment section has been packed full of people desiring to speak, both pro critical theory and people who are against the Marxist leftist agenda that is critical theory. No arguments there. And I definitely have a bias. I come to this with an agenda. No one will deny that. I definitely have an agenda. However, it is not preventing the meeting from happening. One time during a public meeting, was there a little bit of an uproar, and that's when a board member asked a question of the superintendent, and the superintendent hemmed and hawed and delayed and didn't answer her question, and people said, no, answer her question. We have a right to know, and they do. The people have a right to know. All right. For the last several months, the board meetings that were once hardly attended have been drawing a growing crowd as people expressed opinions both in favor and in opposition to critical theory. Critical race theory. While the elective course on the subject taught last school year will not be offered again due to staff unavailability. So this lady has a horrible writing style, by the way. She's cumbersome. Members of the public, and her editing skills are horrible. Like, look at this right here. Members of the public are still taking up, how did that read? Are still taking up to an hour and I don't know, we must have missed a page somewhere, but along with removing disruptive people, first of all, the meeting had not started, so we can call it disruptive, but we can't. And Sebring did say he reserves the right to remove anybody who is disruptive, and he was speaking directly to me, and I said, "Excuse me." He goes, "Well, I'm not saying I'm going to remove you. I want it to be understood that I have never been disruptive during a meeting." There again, this is an example that she painted this picture of me as being disruptive during a public meeting. That has never happened. That has never happened. And here's something else. We have got to understand. It is high time that these elected servants and appointed servants, people like Elstead and Sebring and everybody else on that school board, it's high time that they understand who they work for. It's high time that they understand who they serve. And when they sit there and assert their rights as board members, and they refuse to interact and they refuse to answer questions. They refuse to reply to emails. They refuse to do a change of venue when people have been asking over and over and over again. Remember, we have a constitutional right to a redress of grievances, and this is not happening. It's not happening. Civil disobedience, which should be referred to as civil obedience, in other words, we're civilly obeying the Constitution, needs to begin to happen. Nothing's going to change in the school districts. Nothing's going to change in cities and with city councils and in counties with county boards and all of this until the people finally say, you will hear us and you will respond. Nothing's going to change. But what this reporter has done is she has painted a picture to Anfinson that is inaccurate, and he's responding to that. So she's used some logical fallacies and she's used some fallacious storytelling to get the answer from him that she wants, and he bought right into it, hook, line, and sinker. Along with removing disruptive people, Anfinson also said that Sebring was within his right to request the last people who entered the room to be the ones to leave when the space reached capacity, because it is both a health and safety measure. Like, no arguments that there is a capacity limit. I'm still going to insist that the unessential people in that room our first cabinet members, paid staff. They don't need to be in there until they're called on to speak, just like they demanded people leave. And then when they were ready to speak, they come into the room. I mean, could you imagine how much wouldn't change? Could you imagine how much would never have changed during the civil rights movement if everybody was forced into a forum of decorum and Rosa Parks complied and went to the back of the bus? And as I've been pointing out to people, Rosa Parks got on the bus that day knowing that her life was in danger. Not only did she know that by refusing to move to the back of the bus, that she could also be arrested, but she could have been beaten or even killed. Her civil obedience to her liberties and her rights as an American citizen forced the change. Was she arrested? Sure. Was she taken off that bus forcibly? Absolutely. But it began a cycle of change, and that's what I'm saying needs to happen. And this woman, this reporter, if you will, is doing her level best to paint anybody in opposition to critical theory out to be some sort of radical. Because it's a health and safety measure and ultimately a fire code issue, Anfinson said cutting off the attendance once the room has reached capacity is defensible and lawful. I'm not going to argue the defensible nature of this or lawful nature of it, but what I will say is what we get to here is, though people at the Monday night meeting said the school board needed to change venues to accommodate for crowd, Anfinson said is not legally obligated or obliged to do so, though it might be a good practice. There again, the way this is written, it's painting a picture as if this change of venue was a last minute request. It's not. This request has been going on for 6 weeks, damn near 2 months. Damn near 2 months. And they have ignored it because they don't want more people showing. And I will tell you, I am going to encourage people to continue to pack that room and to go in there and fill it past fire capacity and sit down and refuse to leave. Civil obedience to the Constitution until the school board and the superintendent finally respond to the people requiring a redress of grievances. They need to change the venue. And it's not like this is a last second appeal. They've been asking for damn near 2 months. They are not required to change venues, but it might make good common sense in the future to try and put a speaker in the hallway or in another room in the building. Anfinson said, if this was just a temporary spike in attendance, then I don't think you could make a good argument to change to a bigger venue. This is not a temporary spike. This is going to continue. And the school board knows that, and they will not stop. So here's the part that really kind of chaps my hide. In regards to Pearson's request that school staff and press be removed to allow for more members of the public to attend the meeting, Anfinson said that the demand is not only doesn't have a legal leg to stand on, but that there is no logical support to his request. Once again, it was hyperbolic. It was a hyperbolic statement. And I don't really want the press removed. I would die for the right of the press to do their job. The press isn't doing their job here. The Owatonna People's Press, OPP, is not doing their job. In fact, I have video that shows that the OPP reporters were sitting there giggling and scoffing during the public comment section. And they didn't record anything from the public comment section. They went in there with an agenda, and that's fine. If they want to do that, that's fine, but it should be listed as an editorial piece. It should be listed as an opinion piece, as an opinion commentary, but it's not. And this comment here that Anfinson makes, first of all, I don't care if he's an attorney or not. I will debate him until the day I die on my right and my freedom to use hyperbolic statements to make a point. Staff is needed to provide input and information to the board during the meeting. They have an important function, not during the public comment section. We, the people, are more important than public servants. That includes paid public servants and appointed public servants and elected public servants. We are more important, and they represent us, and they work for us. And if they refuse to make room for us, and then they demand that we leave, and they continue to fill up seats with the press, with the media, and with their cabinet members during the public forum section, those people have no business being in there during the public forum section. They can be asked to step in during the regular meeting and fill a seat or to come up to the microphone. But that's not what was happening here. I wasn't demanding that the paid staff not be allowed in the room at all. I was saying that the cabinet members and that the others who were filling up space for taking away from the ability of we the people to be in that room, especially considering they refuse to change the venue. They refuse. Now, are they obligated to? No, but this is going to get worse. This room is going to continue to be packed to the gills until they finally say, we will accommodate a change of venue for the time being. But they won't, because they want to limit public interaction. That's what they want. They're intentionally limiting public interaction. And here's where Anfinson is off his mark. And the media are the eyes and ears of all the people who cannot attend, which is certainly many more people than those who are physically there. Maybe as it regards the Steele County Times, the Owatonna People's Press, why did you need 2 people there? Why were there 2 of you there? And why was your decorum during the meeting that of giggling and laughing and mocking and derision when the people who were speaking their viewpoints about critical theory and being taught in the school, and why they were opposing it? Why were you mocking and derisive? Why didn't you approach any of us after the meeting to talk to us? Why didn't you approach any of us after the meeting to actually talk and get and by the way, your journalistic ability, your journalistic research is crud. There's so much that you have, like, just on the face, you were completely discredited in your ability to figure out people's names and locations. And you didn't talk to me, so how did you even get my name? Because you talked to somebody from the school board. The media in this situation, the only journalists that were actually doing their job in this situation was the lady from the Owatonna's or the Steele County Times. She actually did her job. Like I said, she approached me and we had a wonderful conversation. There again, remains to be seen how she handles that. But she did a wonderful job. Many of those in attendance at Monday's meeting intend to return to future meetings and have indicated they would do what it takes to be heard. Anfinson noted the civil disobedience is a long, powerful tradition in America, but in some circumstances it can cross a line to illegal. Just because it was for a good purpose doesn't mean you can violate laws. Anfinson said, democracy is a messy process. Sometimes it can veer off the road, and this is democracy in action. This reporter is Annie Granlin. You can find her on Twitter at Annie Granlin, and you can also call she's a research associate editor. I just want to point out she's a research associate editor, and she did crappy research, by the way. Her phone number there at the Owatonna People's Press is 507-444-2378. 507-444-2378. Demonstrably, factually untrue statements were made. She lied to him, clearly lied to him. She clearly painted many of us into a very negative light. And once again, I am perfectly capable and within my rights and liberties to use hyperbolic statements to make a point. And I will say this one more time. The reason there was such an uproar as that meeting began was that Sebring and Elstead in particular have refused to hear the people out when it comes to a change of venue. They don't want people there. They don't want us there. And in particular, Sebring told one lady who has grandchildren in the school district, she's a taxpayer in the state of Minnesota. He told her she had no right to speak at the meeting because she didn't have an address in the school district. First of all, you can tell people that they have an obligation to provide their address. I'd like to see him make that stand up in court. Second of all, Sebring had to admit, and I give him credit, he apologized. He apologized to this lady and said, look, I was wrong. Our policy does not allow me to exclude you from speaking. And I'm going to tell you this. Policy of any school board cannot exclude any person from speaking during a meeting, especially during public forums, just because they don't have an address in the school district. I don't care what your policy is. Does a person have a vested interest in addressing what's happening if they have children or grandchildren? So here's an example. Let's say we've got a dad and a mother who are divorced and they have 3 kids in the Owatonna school district. And let's say dad lives in Calcutta, India, because his job has taken him there. And he happens to be home and he finds out that something's happening in the school district that he does not approve of and he's against. And so he happens to be back in the United States in the Owatonna area. And his address in the United States is Minneapolis, but he lives in Calcutta. Does he have no right to address what's happening in that school district because his address is outside of the school district? Even if policy for the school board says you have to have an address in the school district to speak? This lady has grandchildren in the school district, and she is speaking on behalf of her grandchildren. She's speaking on behalf of people she loves. She's speaking on behalf of other kids in that school district who she cares about. And Sebring's initial attempt was to silence her because of her location. Once again, credit to him for apologizing and saying that, but you watch, they are going to try and change policy to make it that if you do not belong in that school, if you do not have an address within the school district, you will not be allowed to speak. And something else happened. The people in that room who are pro-critical theory tried to have people who are not from the school district removed from the room too. They demanded and they insisted that, well, if you're not from Owatonna, you should leave. Why? Are we not as taxpayers? Are we not as citizens also obligated to be in any public forum? Or not obligated, but entitled to be in any public forum? This is the problem with our republic today. And this is actually a problem with journalism today. Most of the journalists that you deal with are weak-minded, disingenuous, dishonest, patently and demonstrably biased individuals who will do anything they can to paint opposition to their agenda in a negative light. Everyone in that meeting who came to speak against or observe people speaking against critical theory used the utmost of decorum and civility. And yes, there was some confrontation, but that does not make us radicals. And I am sick and tired of people like the reporters for the Owatonna People's Press acting as if they're reporting neutrally when it's very clear that they're not. This is an example of biased yellow journalism. And those of you in Owatonna who rely on OPP for your news, for what happens, would be much better served to watch just YouTube of the meetings than to take any report that they write, which were clearly opinion pieces, as fact. What Owatonna People's Press and Ms. Granlund did was disgusting, absolutely disgusting, and clearly biased. And I would challenge them to actually reach out to talk to me or any of the other people, which they have never done. They've never done. They only talk to the people they agree with. Owatonna People's Press, I recommend that you send one reporter from now on, and that you need to be prepared to see that room packed out every time. Civilly, politely, and with decorum. But civil disobedience is what it takes to change things. And trying to paint people out as radical and dangerous is ridiculous. Till next time, Sic Semper Tyrannis.